Hello and welcome to Media Rumble. I'm Chris, and this is the Star Wars Senate. This week we got to see the return of Star Wars Rebels, and with it, a major character from Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Now in this video I'm going to talk about the importance of movie characters appearing in Star Wars Rebels. Now Star Wars Rebels as a show started off very small, with a relatively small cast of characters, and this situation allowed Star Wars Rebels to really prosper as it was able to focus on building these characters as people, and it wasn't overloading the audience with a huge cast of characters and people to try and remember their names. And this small experience of the television show gradually grew until there was a bigger stage and much bigger threats at hand. And with that there's the next logical step, which is to introduce characters from the films, because the Rebels can't really be rebels without joining the Alliance. And with that comes a whole host of characters, old and new. And this week's introduction of Saw Gerrera is just one in the long line of people who have been in Star Wars Rebels. And interestingly, it actually was Forest Whitaker who reprised his role as Saw Gerrera. And I think this is important for the show as it really ties it to the film, and it really shows that Lucasfilm are committed to creating a shared universe. And one thing I've heard time and again is about expanding the universe. Now it's not the physical size of the universe, it's just what we see of it. And so far in Star Wars it's really been focused directly on the Skywalker family. And with this new canon we've really been able to expand out on what is happening within the Star Wars universe. And the great thing about this is there's a real methodology for the canon. They have a specific team dedicated to keeping the canon intact, and I think this is vital in order to really create a universe which the audience can get behind. And a huge part of that is filling in the little gaps in the storylines here and there, and this is something which people always want. We've been able to see or hear about the events of the original trilogy from other characters' point of view, and to me this is something that really expands the universe because it gets to see how other people are reacting. And with that comes new and interesting characters who can really add to the lore of Star Wars. And as I've said before, it's vital for the audience to know that Star Wars Rebels exists within the Star Wars universe. One perfect example of how it's been caught up in its own success is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There was this grand hope of this shared universe across television, streaming and movies, and so far that's not something that's come to fruition. We've seen episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. here and there mention things from the films, but to me that's not good enough. That's something that could almost exist in a separate universe. It could even be a television show they're referencing, rather than a real life person within the universe. Because one thing that Star Wars Rebels has the luxury of is knowing the end result. With Rebels they're really able to know how the stories can converge on a final point before A New Hope. And especially with that, Rebels is able to exist as a cell, separate from the main entity of the Rebel Alliance. The Phoenix Squadron can just do their own thing and go on their own missions because each different cell within the Alliance has an important job to do. And this is of huge importance within the scope of the entire universe. It might not always be Leia or Lando where we can really see their impact on the final results in the original trilogy. It may even just be a side character or someone who's mentioned in the original trilogy, but having them in Rebels really builds a background on the Rebel Alliance and the feat it was to destroy the Death Star and take down the Empire. And overall, by introducing these movie characters into Rebels, we're really able to see the size of the rebellion. It wasn't just the main characters, we had a full fleet of people who contributed towards the success of the operations. And I think that Rogue One done an excellent job of expanding on the fragility of the Rebel Alliance. From A New Hope it was just a solid entity who sent off X-Wings to destroy a Death Star. But in Rogue One we got to see the importance of unifying all of these different factions with different beliefs. And I think that Saw Gerrera was an important character to introduce because he goes against a lot of the things that the Phoenix Squadron believe in. And by introducing that conflict into people who are meant to be the good guys, it ultimately can only make the story all the more interesting. So what do you think about introducing characters from the films into Star Wars Rebels? Do you think it's pandering, or is it something that you can really enjoy and think adds to the universe? Let me know down in the comments and I'll make sure to reply. Before I go, I'd like to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel over the past few weeks, because it's been amazing to see the kinds of discussions that have come up in the comments, and that's really what this channel's all been about. I've just wanted to start discussions. And I'd really love the channel to continue growing, so make sure you share with your friends and contribute to the discussion down below. Once again, thanks for watching the Star Wars Senate. May the Force be with you.